Welcome to Nevertheless Podcast with Bidemi Mark-Mordi, a show dedicated to organic leaders and leaderpreneurs. Today, you would learn how to discover your essence and live more powerfully.
Hi, and a very happy new year to you. This is the Nevertheless Show, a show for organic leaders and leaderpreneurs. My name is Bidemi Mark-Mordi. Through the month of January, we had done a recap and just to review our 2024 to determine, what blessed you the most and just to give you an inkling of our top most watched and listened to podcasts in that year, which explains why this is the first podcast that I'm bringing your way in 2025. How have you been? I've gone through a bit of stuff, but I'm grateful that I'm standing and I'm here. So from me and from my household to you and yours, a very happy 2025 to you. Better late than never, right? And I'm praying that this year will bring you to all that God has ordained for you in the name of Jesus. Now, this particular month, I'm going to be all over the place trying to get stuff through to you, but I'm going to get them through to you. So this month, I wanted to look at curating a winning year. What do you need to have in your kitty so that you have a year that at the end of the year you are proud of? What are the things that are required or that you require so that your 2025 will be the best one that you had ever thought about or that you imagined? It would end up exactly like you imagined. So this is the conversation through this month. It may not be a sequence, but it's a series, yes? So the subject matter each week may be different and may not even flow into each other, but I promise you that they will be worth your while. So for this first episode, I want to talk about the buckets that you need to fill. There are things that make you a person who is able to curate a year that is a winning one. And so it is not about the year first, as it is about you. What are the decisions you've made for yourself in this year that will contribute to the bottom line that is a winning or winsome year for you at the end of the day? Those are the things that I want us to look at. And I have 5 buckets that I want us to just take a look at. The first one will be, what do you know? The bucket of knowledge. The second one will be, what can you do? The bucket of your skills. The third one will be, who do you know? The bucket of your network. The fourth one will be, what do you have? The bucket of your resources. And the fifth one is the bucket of your reputation. They don't go in any of those orders, but these 5 things are the things that you must take care of concerning you. These are the decisions that you have to make. All of these things, you need to sit down and do what I call a reflecting. Sit down and say to yourself, what was it in my last year that did not contribute to any of these different heads in these 5 buckets that I have mentioned to you? And then as you stop and you reflect, then the idea is we make adjustments, and those adjustments are tended towards the bottom line of a winning year. So where do you start from? You start from deciding that you want to win in 2025, isn't it? So you decide that this year I want to be someone who won. How do you do that? So the first thing is, what do I know? And when I think about the bucket of knowledge, I want to think about not just what you know as in what is it that you know by head knowledge. I would begin from, because we're believers, I'll begin from, what do you know by revelation? It's a new year, and I have said it many times in the course of this year already, that what God does for us with a new year is He presents us an opportunity with which we can adjust our sails and ensure that we're headed in the direction that we ought to be headed. So when I think about the bucket of knowledge, because it's a new year and it's the beginning of the year and the opportunities is an opportunity that God brings to us. One of the ways that God brings us to an opportunity is to give us a promise, a revelational word, a word that you use to now begin to set or chart the path or the course of your year. And for us and for all that concerns us in this ministry where I work, the word is limitless. So when I think about a winning year or a winsome year, I'm thinking of a year in which I'm not limited. I'm taking a look at the 7 spokes of my life. I want to look at my family. I must expand in my family. That's in my relationship with my husband and my children and my extended family to make sure that I'm winning on that front. So, but what do I know, about my family that will help me to make the adjustment that I need to know? What do I know about my relationship with my husband that will enable me, or it becomes the raw material with which I decide how I'm going to adjust myself for 2025. So for me, like I said, when I'm thinking about knowledge, I'm not thinking about how many books you've read. There's a place for that. I'm just saying that you want to order your life by the promise that God has made you in 2025. So for me, He's made us a promise that it's a limitless year. But something strange happened. After he told me that we were going to have a limitless year. I suffered an accident that limited my mobility and still actually has limited my mobility. I had to sit down in that moment and say to myself, what do I know about what has happened to me? How can, despite what has happened to me, based on what God has spoken to me, how can I continue to move forward? How can I continue to curate my life in the time so that I have the right kind of attitude that brings me to a winning year ultimately? So the bucket of knowledge means that you must know what you know. It's Dr. Johnson Maxwell that says that one of the greatest tragedies of life, one of the greatest strategies of life is for a man not to know what he doesn't know. Because if a man does not know what he doesn't know, automatically that man is not able to change what needs to be changed or what needs to change concerning him. So what do you know? What do you know about how you lived your 2024 that you need to change in 2025 if you're going to move forward? If you decide that you're going to win financially in 2025, for instance, you need to know what you made or did not make in 2024. An understanding of what you did not make. Now, what you made, for instance, is not enough to know, oh, I made 20 million. If you made 20 million, the 20 million meets everything that you have, that you had ahead of you, or that you needed to deal with financially in 2024. If you know that you made 20 million and 20 million did not cut it, what do you need to make so that if you had the kind of year you had last year, you'll be able to meet all of your obligation in 2025? So the bucket of knowledge simply says, make sure you know what it is that you do not know. But it's also not enough to know what you do not know. It is important that you know what you need to know as well. And then it is important that you know what you know. Here's the point. If you want a winsome year, begin with you. Beginning with you means take a look behind you, review where you're coming from, and then determine what knowledge you have, what divine revelation you have, what's God saying about your year. And based on what God is saying about your year, what are the things that you need to do and the things that you need to know so that you will have the kind of year that God has spoken about. I've just been giving you a foundation that you need to take a look at your knowledge bucket again. Do you know what kind of year you're supposed to have by revelation? And now that you know, if you know what kind of year you're supposed to have by revelation, do you know what you need to do so that your life would catch up and align with that revelation? What are the things that you need to streamline? What are the things you need to add? Do you know what you don't know? Do you know what you know? And do you know what you need to know? Your knowledge bucket must be robust if you want to have a winsome year. I'm going to go on a break now. When I come back, I'm going to continue to talk to you about these buckets. Please don't go away.
Are you seeking to clarify your purpose and profit from it? Then get into Purpose University this year. It's a 10-week e-course for people of faith who seek to clarify their purpose and profit from it. The DNA of purpose has been put together to help you understand what purpose is about and also help you discover what your journey of purpose looks like. Register today at yourpurposeu.org, where Bidemi Mark-Mordi would hold your hands so you can discover your purpose and live a more powerful life. In a world filled with many fears and discouragement, life often becomes a burden. For those who know the way, life is just simple. Do not worry, you're not alone on this life's journey, as Bidemi Mark-Mordi shares powerful insights and principles from her everyday work and life experiences in her book, Nevertheless. Nevertheless is a book designed to encourage and equip you to face life with courage, hope, and determination. Get a copy of Nevertheless and other books written by Bidemi Mark-Mordi, like The Wisdom of the Seed, Honor, The Theology of Work, and so much more from a bookstore nearby, or call 080-905-63555 or send an email to bidemi@bidemimarkmordi.com to place your order. I guarantee you will make it. Nevertheless.
Welcome back. It's still the Nevertheless show, a show for organic leaders and leaderpreneurs. Before we went on the break, we were looking at how to curate a winning year. And I did say that there are 5 buckets that we need to fill, starting with us, that is me, individually. If I want a winning year, what are the things that I need to do by myself? These are not decisions that are determined by economics. They are not determined by anything. These are personal decisions that you need to make so that the decisions you make would move you forward. I told you that we're going to try and fill 5 buckets of our lives that determine that we have a great year. Because the way my mind works is that if I want to have a great year, I want to begin from being able to have a great time with me. Because if I'm not having a great time by myself, then I cannot translate that into a year. I cannot translate that into a whole year. But as long as I'm having a great time by myself, what's likely to happen is that I'll be able to transmit or translate that into every other thing that I do so that I have a winning year. We started to look at the bucket of knowledge. And I said that when I think about the bucket of knowledge, I do not want you to think about how many books you are going to read in 2025. So the first decision when it comes to knowledge is not how many books will I read in 2025. I think the first decision ought to be, what is God saying about my 2025? The Bible says, get wisdom, and in all you're getting, get knowledge. So there is a knowing, even from the perspective of the divine, that is required if you would have a year that you can win. I gave you the example that in our time, in our own year, we've been given the word limitless. That's the promise that God has made us. Now, one of the big things that has helped me to do, because I have that knowledge that this is a kind of year that God wants me to have, is that when that accident that I mentioned happened and I found myself limited, I had to draw strength from somewhere and find a way to circumvent that limitedness that has now happened to me by accident. I had to sit down and curate a plan that by that plan say to myself, okay, so your mobility is hindered or hampered in this season, but God spoke a limitless life to you. What does a limitless life look like within the confines kinds of these accidents that you have suffered. So part of what I had to do was I had to get a wheelchair. I had to invest in gadgets that would help my mobility not be as bad as it ought to be. You know, someone will say, oh, this is not a lifetime accident. Thank God it's not a lifetime injury. But it is one that has taken me out of commission for 2 months. And I think according to the doctors, I have another month to go. Do I want to wait for 3 months in which I don't do anything about the words that God has given me? Or do I want to spend the money to ensure that I continue to move forward regardless of what has happened that could adversely impact upon the promise that God has made me for a winning year? That's why I say that knowledge is important. Now, in finding a way to move forward, regardless of what has befallen me, I did not have all the information that I needed. But I spoke to people. One of the people I spoke to was my coach. My coach tends to she's a repertoire for all kinds of information that she really doesn't need. So she was that said, she asked me, she said, in this state, what is the hardest thing for you to do? And I said, the hardest thing for me is to go up and down the stairs. And the moment we realized, I told her that the hardest thing was to be able to go up and down the stairs. She sent me a link. She said, oh, there's this gadget. This gadget will help you, it will, if you can afford it and you buy it, it would give you the opportunity, or it will give you the freedom to be able to go up the stairs and down the stairs without having to lean on someone or have someone carry you or have to crawl. So I went online. There were demonstration videos. I watched them. And then I decided that it was something that would help me. And I got it. Now, getting it was hard, because even getting it to get to me on time in Nigeria was a tad difficult, because I was ordering it during the festive period, and Amazon was not delivering things on time. But I did eventually get it. And guess what? My main office for work is three floors up. If I didn't have that, I would not be able to go to the office, even though I'm not able to go every day in this state, but at least the 2 times or 3 times that is important for me to go there and be able to go up and come down, I've been able to do that since the year started. So when I'm talking about knowledge, don't make it about books. Don't make it even about registering for new courses. I'm talking about practical things that you require, practical knowledge that you require for effectiveness through the course of your year. So the bucket of knowledge needs to fill. It needs to fill. I have a book titled The Diary of a CEO. And I like the way the book was written, but it has 33 laws that bring you to success, something like that. The author, Stephen Bartlett, said that those who hoard gold have riches for a moment. Those who hoard knowledge and skills have riches for a lifetime. So just knowing what it is that is required of you to move forward would put an extra pep in my step, figuratively, for me to tackle 2025. I would have been really miserable entry 2025, not being able to move around the way that I'm used to moving around. But knowledge saved me. The knowledge of what God has spoken over me. The knowledge of how I want that to unfold in practical and real terms for me. The knowledge of the fact that there are gadgets and there are things out there that can aid my journey. The knowledge of the people who had the skill to operate on me, where to go. Just all of that puts what would have become a major dent on my year, put it at bay. It's not that the year still didn't get impacted, but it has not stopped me from pressing into what God spoke to me for the year that is ahead of me. Does that make sense to you? So you need to fill your knowledge bucket. Here's some of the things that you need to do, because remember I said to you that this is not really about going to school, but you need to engage in this capacity. You need to engage in something that keeps you learning. So for all of December, all of January, I have been studying the word limitless. Because if God gave me a word, I need to know everything about that word so that I would milk it dry. So I've been studying Limitless. I'm studying it from the perspective of faith. I'm studying it from the perspective of accountability. I'm studying it from the perspective of finance. I'm adjusting myself. I'm making financial decisions that are better than the ones that I made last year. So always start with you. And here I'm saying, start with knowing what you know, what you don't know, what you need to know. If you do this, you'll find that when you sit down, maybe with other people, to talk about how you would win in the course of your year, what you'll find is that you would not be clueless, because a lack of knowledge makes us clueless, because it means that you have no control over the decisions you are making because you are not informed. So I'm saying, take the time out. If you have said, okay, I'm going to win this year in my relationships, then the first step would be for you to know what am I doing in my relationship, or what did I do in my relationships last year that were not a plus, but they were a disadvantage. And then begin to say to yourself, okay, these are the things that I did that did not exactly help me. And going forward, these are the things that I may be able to do so that I can move forward. Make sure that your knowledge bucket is full every time. Brings me to books, because I'm sure you thought you were going to get away from books, right? No, you are going to read. You need to read. You need to learn from other people. So again, curate a theme for your year. If you curate a theme for your year, or determine a theme for your year, that theme will determine the kind of books that you need to read in the course of that year. So say, okay, this and that and that and that, or this one sentence or this one word describes my year in 2025. So if the word that I'm running with is limitless, you can be sure that I'm reading books on how to be limitless. I'm listening to podcasts on how to be limitless. I'm talking to people who, in my opinion, have been limitless in certain regard. I'm learning from them, because unless you open yourself to a body of knowledge, the year will just be another year like the old one. The point of making up your mind to curate a year that's in which you win in 2025 is because you do not want to have a year like you had in 2024. Not because you didn't have a great year, but because it could be a better year. So think about the books you will read. Can you read one book a month? Are you able to read 2 books a month? Whatever it is. One thing I find that helps me to read is I'm either teaching from the book. But if you don't have the opportunity of being able to teach from a book, then you want to start a book club. Find 3, 4, 5, 6 people who are curating the same kind of year as you are, and read the book together. It's amazing how fast you can read a book if you have others reading with you. So determine the books, determine whether you want to read them with others or whether you want to buy those books in audio. If you are someone who, I can't deal with audiobooks, they don't help me. So my book has to be, I like physical books because I write on the pages of the book that I read. But determine the topics or the titles you want to read from the year and go and get them. Don't just get titles because someone is asking you to get a title. Make sure that that title ties to the theme of your year. So that's something else that you can do. Engage in learning. And I find also that when you engage in learning with other people, it goes very fast. For instance, to curate this Limitless year, one of the things that I did was put together a mastermind group. I put together a mastermind group. I determined the kind of people I wanted in that mastermind group. I reached out to them individually because they had to pay their way. And now we have a mastermind group that I'm so proud of because of the caliber of people who are achieving things. I'm not going to start a mastermind group with people who are not exactly curating the kind of life that I am. I'm a busy person, and part of what happened to me last year was that I dropped the balls in some things because of I wasn't able to execute all of them. But getting in a mastermind group with a group of other people who are equally just as busy, if not busier than I am, and are focused on making sure that they do more this year, has just given me some level of peace. As the conversations unfold there, as the Bible says, iron will begin to sharpen iron. So, number one, curate a theme, buy the titles that would help you arrive, build your life around that theme. Number two, find other people who can learn alongside you, because sometimes you just feel like you don't want to do it. And because you don't want to do it, you end up not doing it, or you don't feel up to doing it, you end up not doing it. But if you're accountable to a group, even in the days that you don't feel like you want to do it, you are most likely to show up. And just showing up can be where something rubs off on you, and it gives you the capacity to continue to learn. Now, in this digital age, this is another way to fill your knowledge bucket. In this digital age, there are all kinds. I mean, all kinds. Honestly, there are all kinds of resources and aids for your learning. I have an app that I love. The app is called Perplexity. Perplexity is an AI-driven app. And what it does is that whatever the subject it is that I want to learn about, I just make sure that my prompt is right. Because the thing with all AI generative software is that if you don't feed them the right prompt, they will not give you the right information. So I sit down, the big work that I do, or the larger chunk of the work that I do, is to make sure that my prompt is excellent. The moment I give Perplexity an excellent prompt, it opens me to a body of knowledge. And then I begin from that body of knowledge. I determine, okay, this works. Maybe I should study this today, or maybe this doesn't work. So utilize digital resources. They are available. Everybody else is using them anyway. Use them. It's not that they are doing anything. It's not, Perplexity isn't writing for me, for instance, because I'm writing a book. But in the course of working on my book, a thought occurs to me and I want to refine it. So I'd ask Perplexity to help me. And then it will give me all the options. If it doesn't work, I would refine my prompt again and refine my prompt again until it gives me something. And the beauty of Perplexity for me is that in that moment, it will also give you your sources. So you want to determine whether those sources are the kinds of sources you want to quote or not. So engage in or utilize digital resources as they're available to you, and then engage in discussion. One of the greatest ways to crystallize knowledge that I know is conversations around the subject matter. Every time I sit down with other people and have conversations around my subject matter, oh my God, I become so much better. I become so much better at it. Yesterday, I was in a conversation with a very, what's the word to describe this woman? She was very cerebral. And we were looking at principles and templates. And oh my God, it was such a fantastic conversation that we had. It was really good. And the reason is because I could see how she loves knowledge. And I could see how that she was at home just, discussing the subject matters that came up in the course of our conversation. So engage in discussions. There is no way you get better by yourself. There is no way. For me, that conversation wasn't even so much about I was learning new things. It was that I was learning new ways to engage with what I already know. She had perspective based on subject matter that I had written books on that just were fresh. Those perspectives were fresh for me. So engage in conversations. And finally, if you want your knowledge bucket to continue to fill, you must apply knowledge. You must apply knowledge. I love to apply knowledge because it puts me on a trajectory where I'm able to look at something and then tweak it. We're not in an age where you just come and swallow everything that you see or you're told or you read in a book. In the application of knowledge, you are presented with the opportunity of refining that knowledge to suit where you are headed and then now putting it into action. So make sure you deploy the knowledge that you have, that you are, whether it's new knowledge or old knowledge, make sure you are refining and then you are applying or deploying. I've come to the end of this episode. And what have I been able to tell you so far? I've been able to say to you that you cannot have a winning year unless you are clear from your own self. That is, you have to be your best self to be able to curate a winning year. And I've said that one of the pillars that your life must stand on in 2025, if you want to have a winning year, is that you must have the pillar of knowledge. You must know knowledge. You must know what you don't know. You must know what you need to know. And you must know who knows what you know that you need to know. And you must apply the things that you learn. It helps to discuss what you're learning with other people. And just continue to learn. And I promise you, you'll find that you're so much better. One thing that I and my husband have done this year is we've talked a lot more about investment. And guess what? The more we talk about it, the more we can now see the opportunities that are around us that we didn't even know existed before. That's what knowledge does for you. It opens your eyes so that you can see more. Till next week when I'll come your way, this is the Nevertheless Show, a show for organic leaders and leaderpreneurs. My name is Bidemi Mark-Mordi, and I promise you that if you just be intentional enough in 2025, you can have a winning, winsome, limitless year. Let me hear from you. You can follow me on all social media platforms. Give me feedback on how this episode has helped you. And I would like to hear you give me suggestions, maybe other things that I can do so that my knowledge bucket will continually be filled. Thank you again for taking the time, and I'll see you next week. God bless you.
Thank you for listening to Nevertheless. For more information and resources, call 080-90563-555 or send an email to bidemi@bidemimarkmordi.com. Don't forget, discovering your purpose helps you live more powerfully.